Hello everyone, this is Dartt, and very recently there was another developer Q&A about itemization featuring lead game designer Matt Goss, who I assume took over that position after Ian Hazzikostas was promoted to Grand Poobah of World of Warcraft. I'm going to try a little different format for this recap because these Q&As tend to get a little TLDR and obnoxiously boring besides that. Nothing against Mr. Allen, but the grammar of some of the questions he pulls off Twitter could have been done better by a toddler with a speak and spell. So, just highlights and reactions. Okay, let's get started. The first question related to secondary stats in 7.1.5. The developers admit they still have some work to do on secondary stats, but feel they've made some progress. They don't want to make more drastic changes mid-expansion because they feel that'd be too, drastic. Personally, I'd be happy if I could go back to being able to look at an item and instantly know that it's an upgrade without having to resort to Pawn or Ask Mr. Robot or whatever. The subject of reforging came up, and while the developers acknowledge the need for more player decision-making where gear is concerned, they don't want to reopen the can of worms of players having to reforge multiple pieces of gear to fully optimize their stats. Also, they're sticking to the goal of wanting gear drops during a raid to feel like clear upgrades so as not to disrupt the flow of the raid. My reaction to this is this. As long as they have secondary stats that are more beneficial than others to a given class and spec, they're going to have this issue. They may not have people hearthing to Stormwind to buy gems and chants and to reforge, but these same players are going to have a third-party program or whatever open in the background that will tell them if this is indeed an upgrade, or if they should pass on it whenever loot is rolled for. And that's assuming they haven't figured all of this out ahead of time. There will be gem upgrades coming in a future patch though, so maybe that'll help out a little bit. Who knows? It'll definitely help the jewel crafters. Legendaries came up in the form of if the developers could go back and do things differently, what would they do? This question stood out for me, and I feel it's important because it gives insight into what the developers may do in the future. Matt says that if anything, they'd probably have them drop more often, basically because the drop chance was purposefully undertuned because they could come from anywhere and anything. An important thing that got said is that they will be narrowing the gap in 7.2 between both, and I'm using air quotes here, utility legendaries and power legendaries, and gear that's obtainable. So my takeaway from this is that if the developers in future expansions introduce waves of legendaries, you can expect to see them more commonly. There'll be less of a gap between what players consider utility and power legendaries, and that their window of usefulness may be narrower than what we've seen so far in Legion. Of course, this is pure speculation on my part, but it'll be interesting to see. Josh raised the subject of the Mantle of Command for Beastmaster Hunters, and the sense I get is that it won't be immediately nerfed for 7.2, but at some point the effect from it will be baked into the spec, although I could be wrong. They definitely realize just how much an effect legendaries like this have on gameplay and are keeping a close eye on it. Trinkets were mentioned, specifically dungeon trinkets versus raid trinkets, and Matt said that he likes what Mythic Plus has done for keeping dungeon trinkets relevant, even in the face of higher item level raid trinkets. So yeah, those of you who play tanks out there, don't be afraid to put on your steel-toed boots, so to speak, and go stomp out some Mythic Plus instances either now or in the future, because your best in slot over the long haul may not be a raid drop at all. It may wind up being that Mythic Plus 15 or better Titan Forged trinket. The two-piece set from Arcway and Court of Stars was mentioned, and this may be something that you see more of in the future. From my point of view, I would love to see more items like this that could add value to item slots that you're not entertaining 4-piece bonuses or legendaries in, especially with how enchanting and jewel crafting have taken a hit in recent expansions and allowing for player customization. Dungeon sets may make a comeback. The class order hall sets were an attempt at this. I'll be totally honest, I wasn't around in vanilla when these first came out, and I spend a lot of time raiding, usually between 3 and 5 nights out of the week, so I'm not sure how much benefit I'd get out of them, but I do enjoy collecting transmog sets, so there's always that. What would interest me, and they didn't speak to this directly, would be Mythic Plus dungeon sets with one piece dropping off the last boss in various dungeons. That to me would be a very cool thing to work towards, especially if various Mythic Plus levels had recolor skins you could only get while those instances were considered relevant content. Sort of a reward for challenging yourself. Overlapping tier bonuses from Tier 19 and Tier 20. There are currently no plans to prevent players from taking advantage of this. The development team is interested to see what players do, and while they may tweak things a little, they're in more of an experiment kind of mode, so it may be a good idea to save those Titan Forged Tier 19 pieces if you like your 2 set bonus for when 7.3 goes live. Tomb of Sargeras opening date. It will not be when patch 7.2 goes live, and there's no real information right now as to a date when it will. The development team wants to wait and watch the progression of people through Nighthold before opening Tomb of Sargeras. They also said that there would be a small patch before Tomb of Sargeras raid goes live. Solo challenges in 7.2. From what Matt said, there will be very difficult solo challenges tied to unlocking new artifact weapon skins. This will be reachable via the Mage Tower building when you establish your base on the Broken Shore. These will not scale with item level, so you will definitely be able to outgear them if you feel they're too difficult at the outset. Secondary relic traits, not happening in 7.2. This is no longer a thing, so don't plan for it. There was some discussion earlier about a class order hall research trait that would allow your relics to have a second trait. The developers apparently felt this was too OP and changed that to something to give you more artifact power from world quests. They're still looking at it, but they want to do it in such a way that combines utility traits with power traits rather than having full throughput relics. Just to parse what the developers were actually saying. Old discontinued item skins. The developers have realized, since they're putting a transmog set UI in, that there's a bunch of items needed to fill out discontinued sets. So if you're missing pieces for your old Vanilla Nex Ramus tier set, you may be able to collect that going forward in the form of a re-released item. Heirlooms, yes to 110, no, not for 7.2. But they will have information about that in the future. It is something they're looking into. Thanks, guys. A little more info on whether we could use these before the next expansion would be great. Sure, we'll wait. You think you do, but you don't. I don't know. That's everything for this Q&A. I hope you found this informative. Once again, this is Dartt. Like, comment, subscribe. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see you all in game.